The crystalline spires of the Luminara Observatory pierced the eternal twilight of Helios Prime, their translucent surfaces refracting the dying light of their ancient sun. Within the highest tower, first observer Lyra pulsed with concerned energy as she studied the holographic projections before her. The data couldn't be correct, or rather, she desperately wished it wasn't. "Run the calculations again," she commanded, her form flickering between shades of deep purple and anxious green. The observatory's AI complied silently, but Lyra already knew the result wouldn't change. After all, she'd requested the same analysis 17 times in the past rotation. The numbers remained stark and unforgiving. Their sun, the heart of their civilization for over 50,000 years, was dying. Not the slow, natural death of stellar evolution, but something far more sinister, something deliberate. Beside her, junior observer Helion manifested, his young energy signature barely containing his agitation. "First observer, the Council of Light demands your presence. They've received reports from the outer system patrols." Lyra's energy field condensed, the Luminara equivalent of a grimace. The council chamber occupied the heart of their largest city spire, a cathedral of living crystal that housed the combined wisdom of their species' leaders. As she entered, 7 brilliant beings of pure energy awaited her, their forms suspended in a perfect circle above the chamber's floor. "The data is confirmed, then." Elder Solaris's voice resonated through the crystal walls, carrying undertones of fear that no amount of dignity could fully mask. "Yes, Elder. Our sun's core is experiencing unprecedented instability. At the current rate of deterioration, we have perhaps 3 standard cycles before total collapse." Lyra projected her findings into the center of their circle, watching as the council members' colors shifted to various shades of distress. And the cause? Elder Nova's usually brilliant white energy had dimmed to a concerning gray. "Artificial," Lyra stated firmly. "We've detected quantum signature patterns consistent with exotic particle manipulation. Someone is deliberately destabilizing our sun." The chamber erupted in a cascade of colored light as the council members reacted. It was Elder Aurora who finally asked the question they all feared: the Void Hunters. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Every Luminara knew of the Void Hunters, pirates who had mastered the forbidden art of stellar manipulation. They drained the energy from dying stars to power their massive fleet, caring nothing for the civilizations they destroyed in the process. The energy signatures matched their known patterns, Lyra confirmed. "We've also detected anomalous readings at the system's edge, consistent with their scout ships. We must contact the Galactic Council immediately," Elder Solaris declared, but Lyra's energy field pulsed with disagreement. "The nearest Galactic Council fleet is 17 cycles away," she countered. "We don't have that kind of time." She hesitated before continuing, knowing her next words would cause controversy. "However, I've detected unusual energy signatures from the restricted sector of space, the human territory." The chamber temperature dropped noticeably as the council processed her words. The humans, the Deathworlders who had been quarantined by the Galactic Council centuries ago. "Too dangerous," they'd said. "Too unpredictable. Too willing to fight." "You cannot be suggesting." Elder Nova began, but Lyra interrupted, her usual deference forgotten in the face of extinction. "Their sector is less than 2 cycles away. Our long-range scans indicate they possess technology capable of stellar manipulation that rivals or exceeds the Void Hunters. And most importantly," she pulsed with emphasis, "they have never, in their entire history, refused a call for help. They were quarantined for a reason," Elder Aurora reminded them. "Their ships are built for war. Their bodies evolved for combat. Their very world tried to kill them daily, shaping them into something the galaxy feared." "Perhaps," Lyra acknowledged, "but what we fear in them, their strength, their tenacity, their unrelenting drive, might be exactly what we need. The Void Hunters have never attacked human space. Have you wondered why?" Young Helion, who had remained silent until now, suddenly flared with realization. Because they're afraid of them. The Galactic Council forbids contact with the human sector, Elder Solaris stated, but his energy field wavered with uncertainty. Lyra projected new data into their midst, historical records of human responses to distress calls before their quarantine. They call it their ancient law of the sea. No ship may ignore a cry for help. Even after their isolation, they left an emergency frequency. They knew someday, someone might need what makes them dangerous. The council chamber filled with conflicting colors as the members debated. Outside, their dying sun cast ever longer shadows through the crystal spires. Finally, Elder Solaris spoke for them all. "Send the signal," he commanded. "May the universe forgive us, but we need the monsters humanity tried to warn us we'd someday miss." Lyra immediately began broadcasting on the forbidden frequency, her message simple and direct. To any human ships, this is the Luminara civilization of the Helios system. Our sun is dying. Void hunters approach. We have 3 cycles before total collapse. We are a peaceful species. We cannot fight. Please help us. As the message sped through the void toward human space, Lyra watched the first Void Hunter ships appear at the edge of their system, their black hulls absorbing what little starlight remained. The Luminara had always been beings of peace and light. Now they could only hope that the darkness gathering at their borders would be met by something the galaxy had forgotten it needed: humanity's fierce light of protection. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the viewport of the EDF Hyperion, watching the ethereal patterns of hyperspace flow past like luminous rivers. The massive ship, nearly 3 kilometers long, represented the pinnacle of human engineering, built to withstand forces that would tear lesser vessels apart. Yet at this moment, it was a simple message that had the commander's full attention. "Play it again, Aria," she ordered, and the ship's eye obliged, projecting the distress signal into the command center. To any human ships, this is the Luminara civilization. Chen's weathered face remained impassive, but her dark eyes flickered with determination. 20 years of commanding Earth's most advanced vessel had taught her to trust her instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming that this was bigger than any quarantine regulation. "Analysis?" she asked, turning to her senior staff assembled around the tactical table. Dr. Marcus Webb, the ship's chief scientist, stepped forward. His augmented eyes glowed faintly as he projected additional data. The Luminara are energy beings, evolved from stellar matter. Their entire civilization depends on their sun's specific quantum frequency. If the Void Hunters are truly destabilizing it, they die, Chen finished grimly. "All of them." "Commander," First Officer Kira Patel interjected, "the Galactic Council's quarantine protocols are absolute. Crossing that boundary could restart the isolation wars." Chen smiled slightly, though there was little humor in it. "The same council that called us too dangerous to join their community, too violent to be trusted." She turned back to the viewport. "Maybe it's time they remembered why they feared us in the first place." "Ma'am." Lieutenant Rodriguez at Communications straightened suddenly. "We're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command." The holographic form of Admiral Zhang materialized above the tactical table. His expression was grave. "Commander Chen, I assume you've received the Luminara distress signal." "Yes, sir. The Hyperion can reach their system in 30 hours at emergency speed. We're already plotting." "Commander," Zhang interrupted, "the Galactic Council has specifically warned us against any intervention. They're sending their own response fleet." "Which will arrive too late," Chen countered. "Sir, with respect, we all know what the Void Hunters do to systems they target. There won't be anything left to save." Zhang was silent for a long moment, his holographic form flickering slightly. "Sarah," he said finally, using her first name, something he hadn't done since they'd served together decades ago. "You understand what you're proposing. The diplomatic ramifications." "Permission to speak freely, sir." At his nod, Chen continued. "When humanity first reached the stars, We were called savage, dangerous, a species that evolved on a death world, whose every innovation came from the need to survive against impossible odds. The galaxy feared us because we never learned to quit, never accepted defeat. She gestured to her crew, humans from every corner of Earth, many bearing the subtle signs of genetic engineering that had helped their species thrive on countless worlds. But they never understood what that really meant. We don't fight because we love violence. We fight because we refuse to stand by while others suffer. That's the real legacy of our death world. It taught us the value of protecting those who can't protect themselves. Admiral Zhang's hologram smiled slightly. You sound like your mother. She said something similar during the first contact wars. He straightened, his expression becoming official again. Commander Chen, your orders are as follows. The Hyperion and her battle group are to conduct routine patrol exercises along the quarantine border. Due to possible sensor malfunctions, your exact position may be difficult to verify for the next few days. Chen's eyes widened slightly. Understood, sir. And if we happen to detect anomalous stellar activity requiring investigation, the law of the seas still stands, Commander. We never ignore a cry for help. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in momentary silence. Orders, Commander. Patil asked, though she was already smiling. Chen turned to her crew, seeing the same determination reflected in every face. Signal the battle group. Emergency thrust. Coordinates to follow. Dr. Webb, I want every scrap of data we have on stellar stabilization techniques. Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin broadcasting on all frequencies. Let the Void Hunters know they're about to learn why they've always avoided human space. The Hyperion's massive engines flared to life, pushing the ship faster through hyperspace. Behind it, 5 other human warships fell into formation, their crews preparing for battle. They had been called monsters, dangers, Deathworlders. Now they would show the galaxy the truth about humanity. That the same strength that made them dangerous also made them the fiercest protectors in the universe. In her quarters later, Chen studied the tactical projections. The Void Hunters had never faced a human battle group before. They were about to discover that humanity's quarantine hadn't made them weaker. It had given them decades to prepare for exactly this kind of moment. To build ships that could dance through solar flares, weapons that could stabilize or destroy stars, and crews who carried in their very DNA the legacy of Earth's harsh lessons. Aria, she called to the ship's AI. Show me the Luminera message one more time. As the desperate plea played again, Chen smiled grimly. The galaxy had feared humanity's strength for so long, they'd forgotten its purpose. Time to remind them that sometimes you need monsters to fight monsters, and humanity had learned long ago that the real measure of strength wasn't in how hard you could hit, but in who you chose to protect. The Void Hunter flagship, Eternal Night, hung in space like a tear in reality, its light-absorbing hull making it appear more void than vessel. On its bridge, Fleet Commander Vex watched with clinical satisfaction as his harvester ships began their work on the Luminera sun. Energy tendrils of impossible darkness reached out from the ships, penetrating the stellar surface and beginning the complex process of destabilization. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying the metallic resonance typical of his species. Primary extraction proceeding at optimal efficiency, Commander, his science officer responded. The star's quantum matrix is already showing signs of degradation. The Luminera are attempting to broadcast some kind of stabilizing frequency, but it's ineffective. Vex nodded. They always tried to save their stars. They always failed. Time until critical destabilization. Approximately 28 standard hours. The energy yield should be exceptional. A proximity alert suddenly blared through the bridge. Commander, his sensor officer's typical calm shattered. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Configuration unknown. Vex turned to the main display just as 6 vessels emerged from hyperspace directly between his harvesters and the star. His first thought was that they were impossibly close to the solar interference, No known ships could safely navigate that close to a destabilizing star. His second thought froze the artificial blood in his cybernetic veins. "Those are human vessels," he whispered. The bridge fell silent. Every Void Hunter knew the stories. The Deathworlders, the quarantined ones, the only species whose space they never raided. "Impossible," his second-in-command argued. "The humans are confined to their sector by galactic law. They wouldn't dare." A transmission cut through all their frequencies, overriding their communication security as if it didn't exist. A human female's voice, calm but carrying an edge of steel that made Vex's combat processors spike with warning signals. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. You are engaged in illegal stellar manipulation and threatening a sentient species with extinction. Withdraw immediately, or we will demonstrate why you've always been wise enough to avoid human space." In the Luminara Observatory, First Observer Lyra watched in amazement as the human ships took up formation around their sun. Their design philosophy was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Not the sleek elegance of council ships or the dark sophistication of Void Hunter vessels. These ships were built like the apex predators of a death world, all functional power and contained fury. "They came," young Helion whispered, his energy form pulsing with hope. "They actually came." Through their quantum sensors, they could see the human ships were already adapting to the stellar interference that should have fried their systems. Where other species built ships to avoid such conditions, humans had apparently designed theirs to thrive in them. The Void Hunters' response came swiftly. 20 ships against 6, moving to surround the human vessels. A mistake, Lyra realized, watching the tactical display. They still thought of space combat in terms of traditional numbers and positioning. The human ships moved, not the careful, calculated maneuvers of council vessels, but with the fluid grace of creatures evolved to hunt in 3 dimensions. They split apart, each ship moving in what seemed like random patterns that somehow, impossibly, formed a perfect defensive web around the star. "Fascinating," Lyra murmured, her scientific curiosity overtaking her fear. "They're using the solar flares to mask their movements. The stellar interference that should be hampering them. They're turning it into a weapon." The first shots were fired by the Void Hunters, lances of dark energy that could slice through battleship armor. But the human ships moved like dancers in a deadly ballet, letting the solar flares absorb attacks that would have vaporized normal shields. Their return fire was precise and devastating, targeting not the Void Hunters' main systems, but their stellar harvesting equipment. "They're not just fighting," Helion realized. "They're stopping the stellar destabilization process." Lyra's sensors detected massive energy readings from the human vessels. They were channeling the very solar flares being used against them, their ship's unique shielding technology somehow containing and redirecting forces that should have been uncontrollable. Commander Chen's voice came through their communications again, this time addressed to the Luminara. "Begin broadcasting your stellar harmonization frequencies at full power. We'll synchronize our graviton pulses to amplify them." The Void Hunters, realizing their tactics weren't working, switched to their preferred strategy: overwhelming force. Their ships began powering up their main weapons, the kind that could crack planets. But the humans had apparently been waiting for exactly this. Their formation shifted again, and Lyra's instruments detected something that should have been impossible. They were generating artificial gravity wells, using their position relative to the star to create a complex web of gravitational lenses. The Void Hunters fired their planet killers. The human ships didn't dodge. Instead, their gravitational web caught the energy weapons and did something Lyra would never have believed possible. They bent the attacks back on their originators. 3 Void Hunter ships disappeared in explosions of their own making. The others began to retreat, their notorious discipline cracking in the face of an enemy that turned their greatest weapons against them. By the light, Helion breathed, watching the tactical display. The stories about them, they weren't exaggerations, were they? "No," Lyra replied softly. "They were understatements. The battle wasn't over. The Void Hunters still outnumbered the humans, and they were already regrouping for another attack. But watching the human ships move through space like they were born to it, turning the very forces of nature into weapons while simultaneously working to stabilize the Luminara's dying sun, Lyra understood something profound. The galaxy had quarantined humanity because they were dangerous. But they had never understood that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology, or their strength, or even their ability to survive what should have killed them. It was their absolute, unwavering determination to protect others, no matter the cost to themselves. The humans weren't just fighting the Void Hunters. They were rewriting the rules of what was possible, simply because someone had asked them for help. Commander Sarah Chen felt the Hyperion shudder as another gravitational shockwave rippled through space. The battle had been raging for hours, and while they'd bloodied the Void Hunters badly, the enemy still held numerical superiority. More concerning was the state of the Luminara's sun. Its core was becoming increasingly unstable. "Dr. Webb," she called out, "status on the stellar stabilization." The scientist's augmented eyes flickered with complex calculations. The Luminara's harmonization frequencies are helping, but the damage is severe. We need something more unconventional. Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Unconventional is humanity's specialty. What are you thinking? The Void Hunters use quantum manipulation to destabilize stars, Webb explained, projecting a complex diagram. But Earth's sun taught us something they never learned. Sometimes the best way to control chaos is to dive right into it. Understanding dawned on Chen's face. Project Prometheus. It's never been tested outside simulation, Webb cautioned. The energy requirements alone would be met by a destabilizing star, Chen finished. She turned to her tactical officer. Status of the Void Hunter fleet. 12 ships remaining, Commander. They're regrouping for another push, but their formation suggests they're protecting something, probably their stellar extraction equipment. Chen nodded. That's their weakness. They can't abandon their harvesting technology. It's too valuable. She straightened. Decision made. All hands. This is the commander. Prepare for implementation, Prometheus. Battle Group, acknowledge receipt of tactical data. One by one, the other human ships confirmed. They trained for this, even if they'd never expected to actually attempt it. On the main screen, the Void Hunters began their advance, their remaining ships forming an attack pattern designed to overwhelm through sheer firepower. They still think this is about destroying them, Chen mused. They don't understand we're trying to save everyone, including them. The human ships began moving in a new pattern, more complex than anything they'd shown so far. Each vessel positioned itself at precise coordinates relative to the star's magnetic poles, their advanced engines training against the intense gravitational forces. Void Hunter fleet is launching primary attack, Tactical reported. Multiple energy signatures detected. Let them come, Chen ordered. Dr. Webb, begin the sequence. The science officer's hands flew over his controls. Initiating Project Prometheus. All ships report graviton generators at maximum capacity. Beginning quantum field synchronization. The space around the human ships began to distort as they generated overlapping fields of artificial gravity, creating a complex web of force that interacted with the star's natural magnetic field. The Void Hunters' attacks crashed against this barrier, their energy being absorbed and channeled into the growing gravitational matrix. In the Luminara Observatory, First Observer Lyra watched in amazement as her sensors detected something unprecedented. They're not just containing the stellar instability, she realized. They're using it. The humans are turning the star's own destabilization into a self-correcting feedback loop. The principle was brilliant in its audacity. Instead of fighting against the chaos the Void Hunters had introduced into the star's core, the humans were amplifying it in controlled bursts, using their gravity technology to direct the energy back into specific layers of the star's structure. It's like, young Helion searched for the analogy, like fighting fire with fire. Exactly, Lyra agreed. Only a species that evolved on a world of constant danger could have conceived of such a solution. They learned to survive by understanding and harnessing the very forces that threatened them. On the Hyperion's bridge, alarms blared as the ship's systems were pushed to their limits. Hull temperature approaching critical, engineering reported. Graviton generators at 110% capacity. Hold position, Chen ordered. Dr. Webb, the quantum matrix is beginning to stabilize. The star's core is responding to the treatment, but... He hesitated. Commander, we need more power. The gravitational web isn't quite strong enough to complete the process. Chen's eyes narrowed as she studied the tactical display. The Void Hunters were still attacking, but their strikes were becoming desperate, uncoordinated. They could see their prize slipping away but couldn't understand the forces being unleashed around them. All ships, this is Commander Chen. Divert all remaining power to the graviton generators. Everything except life support and minimal maneuvering thrusters. Ma'am, her first officer protested. That would leave us completely vulnerable to attack. The Void Hunters won't attack, Chen replied with certainty. Because we're about to show them something they've never seen before. What happens when humanity stops holding back? She opened a channel to the enemy fleet. Void Hunter vessels, this is your final warning. What we're attempting has never been done before. If you remain in the system, we cannot guarantee your safety. We don't want to destroy you, but we will not allow you to harm the Luminera. The choice is yours. The response was immediate. Increased weapons fire from the Void Hunter fleet. But Chen had already seen what she needed to in their attack pattern. Their shots were designed to drive the human ships away, not destroy them. The Void Hunters were afraid. All ships, Chen commanded, initiate final sequence. Push the generators to maximum output. Let's show the galaxy why evolution on a death world taught us to never give up. The human ship's engines flared one final time as they poured every scrap of power into their gravitational web. The space around the Luminera's sun began to glow with impossible energies as Project Prometheus reached its crescendo. In that moment, humanity demonstrated why they had survived a world that should have killed them, because they had learned to turn nature's deadliest forces into tools for preservation rather than destruction. The light from the Luminera's sun blazed across space, not with the sickly instability of a dying star, but with the steady brilliance of renewal. Project Prometheus had worked beyond their most optimistic projections. The star's quantum matrix had not just stabilized, it had been strengthened, its natural cycles restored to perfect harmony. The Void Hunter fleet had retreated to the system's edge, their remaining ships clustering together like shadows before dawn. They made no further aggressive moves, their sensors undoubtedly trying to understand exactly what they had just witnessed. On the Hyperion's bridge, Commander Chen allowed herself to finally relax slightly. Status report, she ordered, though her voice was hoarse from hours of giving commands. Star stabilization at 99.9% and holding. Dr. Webb reported, his augmented eyes still processing the streams of data. The Luminera's harmonization frequencies have fully integrated with our gravitational matrix. It's actually more stable now than it was before the attack. Void Hunter fleet maintaining position at the system's edge, Tactical added. They appear to be conducting emergency repairs. Most of their stellar harvesting equipment was destroyed in the final energy surge. Chen nodded, then turned to communications. Open a channel to First Observer Lyra. The main screen illuminated with the Luminera leader's glowing form, her energy signature pulsing with colors that Chen's xenobiology training identified as joy and amazement. Commander Chen, Lyra's voice carried harmonics of deep emotion. You have done the impossible. Our scientists are still trying to understand how you managed to turn the very forces destroying our sun into the means of saving it. We had good teachers, Chen replied with a small smile. Earth taught us that the most destructive forces in nature can also be the most constructive, if you're willing to understand them instead of just fearing them. Like humanity itself, perhaps, Lyra suggested, her form flickering with what might have been amusement. Before Chen could respond, New alarms sounded. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace, Tactical announced. Galactic Council signatures, a lot of them. The space around the system's edge lit up as a massive council fleet emerged from hyperspace, dozens of ships representing the combined might of the galaxy's governing body. Their design was elegant, beautiful even, but Chen couldn't help noting how fragile they looked compared to Earth's battle-tested vessels. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, communications reported. Put it through, Chen ordered, straightening her uniform. The stern face of Council High Commander Varen appeared on screen. Commander Chen, he began, his tone carrying carefully controlled outrage. You have violated multiple Council directives, crossed the quarantine boundary, and engaged in unauthorized combat operations. Your actions could restart the isolation wars. What do you have to say in your defense? But before Chen could speak, Lyra's image moved forward. High Commander, with respect, humanity did not violate the Council's trust today. They justified it. While the Council debated procedures and protocols, my people faced extinction. The humans not only saved us, but they did so while trying to minimize casualties on all sides, even among those attacking us. The quarantine exists for a reason, Varen insisted. Humanity's potential for violence is exactly what makes them the guardians we sometimes need. Lyra interrupted. Her form expanded, displaying data from the battle. Look at what they achieved here. They took forces powerful enough to destroy a star and turned them into a means of preservation. They faced overwhelming odds not with blind aggression, but with calculated protection. The tactical display showed the human ships still maintaining their protective formation around the Luminara's sun despite their depleted state. They were damaged, their hulls scarred by battle, but they held their position with unwavering determination. The galaxy feared humanity's strength. Lyra continued, their ability to survive what should have killed them, their drive to overcome any obstacle. But we never understood what they had been trying to tell us all along, that these traits evolved not for conquest, but for protection. Chen watched as uncertainty crept into Varen's expression. You're suggesting we simply ignore centuries of policy. I'm suggesting we evolve, just as humanity did, Lyra replied. They adapted to survive a hostile world. Perhaps it's time we adapted to accept that sometimes we need guardians who understand how to face the darkness. The silence that followed was broken by new signals from the system's edge. The Void Hunter fleet was powering up their engines, perhaps hoping to escape in the confusion. They froze as the human ships smoothly shifted formation, not threatening, but making it clear that any aggressive move would be met with immediate response. Look at them, High Commander, Lyra urged. Even now, exhausted and damaged, they stand ready to protect us. Not because they love violence, but because they understand what it means to survive against impossible odds, and they choose to use that strength to ensure others can survive too. Chen stepped forward. High Commander, humanity accepted our quarantine because we understood the galaxy's fear, but we never stopped hoping that one day you would understand what we had learned on our death world, that true strength isn't about destruction. It's about having the power to destroy and choosing to protect instead. The council chamber erupted in discussion as Varen consulted with his superiors. Minutes stretched into hours as debate raged. Finally, the High Commander returned to the screen, his expression transformed. The council has made a decision, he announced. We are establishing a new protocol, the Guardian Initiative. Under strict oversight, human forces will be authorized to respond to extreme threats that conventional council forces cannot handle. Commander Chen, your actions here will serve as the template for this initiative. Relief flooded through the Hyperion's bridge. They had done more than save one civilization. They had opened a door for humanity to finally take its place in the galactic community. As the Council fleet began securing the system and taking the surrendered Void Hunters into custody, Chen received one final transmission from Lyra. Commander, the Luminara leader's voice was soft with emotion. When we sent that distress call, we hoped for salvation. Instead, we received something far more valuable: understanding. Today, you showed the galaxy that sometimes what we fear most is exactly what we need most. Your people evolved on a world that tried to kill you. In doing so, you became exactly what the galaxy needed: protectors who know the true value of life, because you had to fight for every moment of it. Chen looked out at the renewed star, its light now steady and strong. "We never wanted to be feared," she replied. "We just wanted the chance to show that surviving a death world taught us more than how to fight. It taught us why to fight, to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the Hyperion prepared to return home, Chen knew they had achieved something far greater than a military victory. They had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to survive against impossible odds. It was their choice to use that strength to ensure others could survive too. The quarantine would be modified, not ended, but it was a start. Humanity had finally found their true place in the galaxy, not as monsters to be feared, but as guardians to be called upon when darkness threatened. They were the children of Earth, a death world that had forged them not into conquerors, but into protectors. And the galaxy was finally ready to understand the truth about the Deathworlders, that sometimes the most dangerous species in space were exactly the ones you wanted watching over you.